All right, looks like the TV just came on. Therefore, good evening, and welcome to the September 4th, 2017 Conservation Commission meeting. Before we start the meeting, based on the agenda, I have two things I'd like to mention. One is first an apology. I'm sorry I did not send out the agenda when I usually do. I usually send out the agenda the preceding Thursday. I drafted the agenda and apparently I didn't send it out. I thought I had, but obviously I did not. So A, I apologize for not sending it out, and B, I apologize for the confusion that created, because I know it did create some confusion. So I'm very sorry for that. I'll try to make sure it doesn't happen again. and thank you for those who reached out to me to say, hey dummy, where's the agenda? That's good. So if you don't get an agenda the Thursday before, don't hesitate to ping me and let me know. Second is on August 19th, Fred Pearson passed away. Sorry. Fred was a longtime resident of the community, a longtime member of the Conservation Commission, and someone I considered a friend. I'm very sad to hear of his passing, and I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember Fred. Thank you. So, now on to the agenda items. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sue, could you do the roll call, please? Present.
Edward Brown.
Present.
Jeff Goldman.
Present.
Mary Ann Hannigan.
Present.
Ann LaFortune.
Present.
Julia Sinclair.
Present.
And both Roseanne Quox and Casey Fitch reached out to me to say that they would not be able to make it to the meeting this evening. They're excused. Next agenda item is public comments. Do we have any members of the public? If you would, could you please come up to the podium, say your name, address, and name?
I'm Jeff Cunningham. I live at 264 Grant Road. I'm here to talk about something that's a little bit random, but I live adjacent. My property abuts the Wigan Farm. I think it's called Conservation Area. I'm at the I don't know what direction it would be. I'm on the Grapevine Hill side of it, up the hill towards the tree farm. So the reason I'm here is because I'm not a biologist, but I do know that I spend a lot of time in that field as an avid photographer, and spending time in that field with my son, I really appreciate that space and the stuff that the town does to provide that space for everybody. The problem that's happening there now is that they're mowing the field, and the field is full of endangered monarch butterflies. Mm-hmm. That started 2 days ago. Last year, I spent a lot of time in the field going and looking at the butterflies, photographing the butterflies with my son. I know that they're super endangered. I know that there's 90%, literally 90% less of them than there was 20 years ago. So we all remember getting them in school and doing our thing with them and not being able to walk out in the field and not being able to find one. Now they're pretty hard to find. Newmarket is in the unique position of having a conservation property that is a old farm, I assume, given the name, and that is a field that is not used for agriculture purposes. Therefore, the wildlife there and the flora are perfect for that species to survive, and it's one of the few places in this area, I imagine, that there's a large concentration of milkweed, which there is. Last year, last year they mowed the field somewhere around the first or second week of October, and there was still a bunch of butterfly chrysalises out there, and I was like bummed out about that, but I said they eventually have to do this, and it's getting late in the season. My plan was to come to this meeting no matter what and say, how can we push that forward a little bit? Then yesterday I hear a mower firing up, and I go out there and they're taking it out. So needless to say, I think that we can do a better job managing that. My understanding is that there's lots of different species there that they have to be careful of and mow at different times of the year and mow around because they don't want to, and there's lots of them. This one happens to be a super endangered species that relies solely on a plant that's located in that area. So I'm super concerned about that decision to mow right now, and was hoping that that decision was based on not knowing the full extent of that population of that animal being there. The reason I'm here is because you guys this is what you guys do, and this is a property that you guys are stewards for. I consider myself a steward for it as a resident, which is why I'm here. And just to let you know, I called the town earlier because I was like, I can't wait until Thursday if they mow the whole field. This is kind of a done deal, right, for this year. The town responded by saying, we'll call the Department of Public Works, or no, you call the Department of Public Works. They're the ones that mow the field. So I'm like, okay, I'll call the Department of Public Works about butterflies. We'll see what happens there. Predictably, they were back out this morning mowing the field, and they're going to continue to mow the field until somebody bigger than myself, who presides over things like this, call them. That's by the way, that is the message from the secretary of the town administrator, because I called them too. So they called me back very nicely and said, we understand your concern. They are going to stop mowing the field today, because I was out there this morning, but you need to go to the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission needs to tell the DPW to stop mowing the field. So for the record, and I'm on the record because I'm on TV right now, this is me, my stewardship, going to you guys saying, it's on you guys now to do something about this if you so choose. My belief is that it's super important, and I'm fairly disappointed, I will say, with the Department of Public Works, that their reaction to a resident concern about something like this is to go, we're just going to wait until somebody above my pay grade tells me not to do it. So I'll go on the record to say that. I don't think that's in the best interest of the town and its people to give it a day, unless there's extenuating circumstances that I don't know about. I'll give this to you guys. You can find it. This is how hard it is to figure out when you should mow for butterflies, and I'm assuming you guys know it. You Google, when do I mow for butterflies? And it populates the Monarch Joint Venture, which is supported by the National Wildlife, whatever it is, that says we don't mow fields in this area as a best practice for butterflies, if we care, until at the earliest October 1st. So we're 3 weeks before that. You're mowing them down now, literally mowing them down, like right now. And I just wanted to give this to you guys, because if you mow down the milkweed, it doesn't seed correctly. If you mow down the butterflies, they don't make it to Mexico. And if you mow down the flowers, the ones that do hatch don't have anything to give themselves their Gatorade that they need to get down there. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm here. And I'll give this to you guys just because you probably need it. But this is the field. And there's the monarch butterfly caterpillar on the edge of the cut line. So this is not, I can send this to whoever needs it for record, but they're out there in numbers. But they're out there in numbers for us, and in general they're not out there in numbers because they're endangered. So I guess what I'm looking for, and then I'll let you guys get to your real business tonight, is what can we do about it in the short term to stop them from mowing until October, and then how can whoever, work with you guys to come up with a plan, especially for next year, to say, when is the right time for the fall mowing? Because it seems to me it's a pretty easy decision to just say, let's do mid-October and call it good.
Sure. So first of all, Jeff, thank you for coming.
Sure.
And thank you for looking out for both the properties and the wildlife that's in there. So you are correct that in large part, the Wigan Farm, as non-agricultural field,
Right.
we're maintaining it that way in an effort for wildlife habitat.
Right.
And indeed, monarch butterflies is one of the wildlife habitats that we desire to promote.
Right.
I don't have the property management plan in front of me, but I am almost certain that we have something written into that management plan that
Right.
talks about mowing.
Yeah.
And there's somewhat of a balance in that area. We don't want to, there's a lot of nesting birds that also
Yeah.
live in there, so we can't mow early in the year.
Right.
And so, if I remember correctly, I thought we had something that said,
We recently, a few years back, we took that into account specifically. We
Right.
did some research on monarchs, and we modified the mowing date because it was too early.
Right.
And moved it to later in the year.
Right.
That was several years ago.
Right.
Ellen Snyder recently worked on our updating the management plan. I don't remember if you
Supposed to be
did.
in October.
Okay,
Okay.
that's the date in our
Oh.
management
I mean,
plan.
I think
It-
it may say September, October.
I thought we
but the
specifically
later-
said after a
yeah,
later,
yeah,
after a
I can't
date.
remember, but it's the issue of, it's when does the town, when can the town do it?
Right.
And I,
yeah, so let me expand on that a little bit if I could. So one of the things that comes into this is there's sort of two choices. One, the Department of Public Works is kind enough to mow the field annually for us, and obviously if the field doesn't get mowed, it doesn't take too long until it's no longer a field.
Right.
So we're very appreciative of the mowing happening. And currently, if my understanding is correct, someone who's hired as part-time summer help, is usually who mows the field.
Right.
And so it's sort of the crossroads of how late is that part-time employee working into the fall? And, how much can we delay the mowing in order to maximize the wildlife habitat?
Right.
And it does seem as though it's a little earlier this year than we would like in an ideal world.
Yeah.
To help address that, I'll send out a communication to the department, to the chair of the Department of Public Works this evening,
Okay.
asking if they can delay the mowing,
Okay.
and reiterating, based on best practices for monarchs, we'd like to see this.
Right.
And also, if it cannot be delayed, then is it possible to not mow areas that have high concentrations of milkweed?
Yeah, because that is another thing.
That's sort of a secondary,
Yeah, and that's a thing it says in that best practices of even when you do mow parts, but leave some parts, I guess, I'm not an expert in mowing for wildlife, but leave some parts so that there's some stuff left that can both seed and feed what's left after you mow the entire other part. As a town resident, I appreciate everything the Department of Public Works does, and I understand the situation you're describing. I think that we can I would expect that we can figure out a way to have somebody else mow that field, and that we probably shouldn't kill off the endangered species because we're trying to help make sure the part-time worker does it 2 weeks earlier. I mean, to me, that's not an acceptable answer for why it happens. I understand the reasoning, but it doesn't make me feel good to say, well, we got a guy, and once that guy goes, we really aren't gonna do it. I'd wonder if we don't have anyone else who can mow, or if it's an equipment issue, or whatever, but I would expect that, we could probably figure out how to do this 2 or 3 weeks later. I mean, we're all smart people and have enough
That's the goal.
resources. Right?
That's
So,
the goal.
I appreciate your time. Again, like they said, it's gonna be you guys calling them, so I'm hoping that I don't hear the mower fire tomorrow morning, 'cause it's a bummer every time, because I do know where they are, so if you need help, by the way, on that end, let me know, because you're right, they are more in certain areas than other areas, and so I can help point out where they are, just because I'm in there all the time, so.
great, thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff.
Thank you.
To ask if we should communicate findings back to Jeff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
I was just,
If you don't mind, Jeff, can you provide contact information,
Sure,
and then we can ping back?
sure.
Just to update you on what we find.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if you can just scribble it down next to Sue, then
Sure.
she'll pass it on.
You know what,
Thank
I noticed there were more butterflies this year than last year, as a matter of fact. I was pretty amazed at all the butterflies, all the monarchs.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I mean, I acknowledge that when my children were younger, that was one of the places we went to look for caterpillar, well, actually look for chrysalises.
Right.
And then they'd, take them into school.
Right.
We actually never had any luck there.
I mean, we don't want to go overboard, but there's things that towns can do to actually say that we're like monarch stewards, which would be a cool thing
Sure,
for
yeah.
Newmarket.
Mm.
If we do have that population, and you just have to do a couple action items, and it's like, say that we do it, say that we care, change
Can
the.
you come up to the speaker just
Sorry,
so that-
change, there's things we can do as a community to say, we care about this species, so it might be a cool thing to do, because it is a fairly unique thing to Newmarket that we have such a great place for them, and it only strengthens the importance of that place. And all you have to do to get that designation is have your town administrator declare a monarch something day, and you do a couple things like set a mowing plan that is fair to them. You may plant some indigenous species in the gardens around here. It's not a super complicated thing to get done, and I thought of that because you were saying they say to do something in the schools that teaches the kids about them. So my child's only 3.5, so he's not in school yet, but that would be a thing that I think people would like to do. So, that could be a next step for next year potentially. And I think Newmarket could be a leader in something like that. I also think that this is a highly salient issue because everybody does remember butterflies and has that experience as children. So, we want to have a good reputation for this because it's an emotional driver for people and people care about it. So, unlike other random bugs that people are like, ew. So.
So I finally found it, actually.
Okay.
It was in 2010, so it was a long time ago now. And we had modified it to be after September 15th.
Right.
And so they may actually be close on it. So they're close to it. And perhaps things have maybe changed a little bit with a slightly longer growing
really
season
think
over the
so.
past 7
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Right.
So maybe it's time to actually amend it to do it a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, I think
due
we
to
should
that.
probably.
We did it for twofold reason. One was for monarch butterflies and to try to get it after the milkweed started to die, because that's when traditionally we'd see it die.
Right.
And for I believe it was hatching turtle, make sure all the turtle hatchings were done.
Right.
Because there are a few species of turtles that may.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. So, if the experts in this stuff are saying no earlier than October 1, maybe we amend that, because if they're going to be on the earlier side of what the drop dead minimum earliest date is, we want to make sure that they're not out there before that, and they're out there before that now, given what you just said. So that's
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I was saying. That was 7 years ago, and perhaps
Yeah.
this season. And this season, like everyone's been saying, I know there seem to be more out. I've seen them out there myself this year.
Yeah.
There seem to be more this year than last year
Yeah,
by
definitely.
a large number,
Right.
actually. So I don't know if that's cyclical either.
Right. All right, thank you
Okay,
very much.
cool. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. So we have two different sets of guests with us this evening. So if the folks on the commission do not mind, I'd like to rearrange the order of the rest of the agenda items such that we discuss the Shopmeyer Park as our next item, and then we discuss the Piscassic River Loisel property kiosk after that. Is that okay with everyone
Yes.
on the commission?
Yes.
Excellent. So Shopmeyer Park, Jeff, do you want to start, or do you want to have Richie speak?
I'll read a little statement, and then I've got the girls here that are in charge of the garden and the entrance area,
Good.
which I have no expertise in. But anyway, we're here to get this project moving ahead and to gain approval from the Conservation Commission before we enter into contract with the entrance garden area. I am not interested in discussing the cost associated with this part of the project tonight, as the Shopmeyer Park Committee has to vote to approve any expenditures. We have 3 proposals on the project, and in reviewing them, it seems that they are not consistent with each other and at this juncture, your input is important as the future stewardship of this park will be in your hands. From your August meeting related to the park, it is my reflection that the CC members were in agreement that the pathway access from the parking lot area would be 5 feet wide, with one of them handicap accessible and the other with granite steps. You were not in favor of the concept of an oval sitting, but rather a curved wall. Actual length is open for discussion, and the area fronting the wall remain a lawn. Beyond this, as to whether the CC's vision is as to the garden area needs to be clarified. In the future, we may be looking at the wooded area to the south side of the park to blaze a trail down the river frontage adjacent to the cove area. This will hopefully be accomplished through the volunteer help. And still waiting for DES to schedule a meeting for the river access. We haven't heard from them at all. But anyway, I'd like to turn it over to Elizabeth and Ellen and Terry, who is that committee. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Richard.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Dudley. I'm a landscape architect here in Newmarket, and I'm involved with the Shopmeyer Park as a member of the Lamprey River Advisory Council, and so I'm working on the park through that connection. The park plan, I think you all have the park plan, and I know that it's just in the preliminary phases for deciding the final bidding and the nuances of final design. The thrust of the park is to have a native plants garden, and I can say happily that we have Asclepias incarnata in there, which is the milkweed for the monarch butterfly. So I'm not sure exactly what the questions are, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
I passed along our comments from our last meeting, and so I think the thought was we weren't sure if any of those comments were taken into account with the modification design. So there were comments in that the pathway on the right. Most of the commission firmly felt that they were hoping it would be a solid at least 5 feet wide. It felt pretty strongly about handicap accessibility, and if a handicapped person wanted to park like a wheelchair along the side, people could still walk around, and you could turn one around just on that path on the right-hand side.
We had envisioned, I think as a group, that it would always have an handicap accessible, or I prefer to say universal design for one of the paths. So the idea of having two paths was to just allow variety for young children and different ways of exploring and learning about the native plants in the central pollinator garden. And one of the paths is also edged by native blueberries, so it would be fun for children to explore that. I have all of your notes. I did not change the design in terms of, these I think are small nuances in terms of resending them out to the contractors, because we've already scaled down the plan, so this is the second time for two of the contractors that they were taking the time, and it's a considerable amount of time for thorough bidding. And so these questions can be addressed once the final contractor is chosen. But I heartily agree that we should have a wide path, and as you're also a member of the Shopmeyer committee, we can talk about that together in a meeting once we've chosen a contractor. But does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, definitely. And the only other thing that I think that was like a major design type thing that we were talking about was having the wall, like the wall on the riverside, and instead of having a stone rim around the oval there, be more the open shape and just having the natural lawn that's there come up into the center of
We did, and that plan, that I think there's also, I'm not sure exactly when the 5-foot path was or was not recorded, but my understanding is that there is going to be lawn there, and whether or not it has a border of stone around the perimeter, from a design point of view, it's nice, but if the Conservation Commission doesn't want the stone and the rest of the Shopmeyer Park Committee prefers not to have a stone perimeter. It's flush with the lawn.
Yeah.
It's a small design criteria, and again, we are all working together, and it's evolving little piece by piece here.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Though I think maybe my lack of understanding on that was that you had bids that came in, and then I wasn't sure if that was like, this is the design, you got bids on that design, and then that's what we're supposed to vote on at our next meeting. So that's maybe
Oh,
that's my
sure.
misunderstanding, is that I didn't know if you were gonna take our comments and then bring a slightly different design to our next Shopmire Park Committee meeting, and I think that's.
Okay, and maybe I'm more familiar with the process because I often do this, but typically, to repeat myself, nuances of design happen once you've met with the contractor, and then you go over with the contractor your exact plans. And these are very fungible and I think pretty small design changes, so I don't think it would require any new bidding process.
They're actually maybe taking something away too, so the pricing might even be even closer.
Yeah, and I
Making
think you
something a little
have,
bigger.
you have all the bids, and their bids are never apples and apples. So,
Right.
and that's my job, is to help match them all up. At our next meeting, we can talk about things and choose a contractor. I mean, I think there are 3 really good bids by 3 good contractors. I think they'll bring a good result. Does anyone else have any questions? Did you want to say something?
Well, I talked to a department today, and they're gonna get back with me tomorrow, because I wanna have a meeting for the whole committee next week, and they're gonna tell me what nights are available. I don't think Monday was available at all, but they thought that the middle of the week could be. But they're gonna call me back in the morning. I don't think Amy was there today.
Okay.
But I got a call right before 5 and said they'd call me in the morning.
And just so you know, my availability is cut down on weeknights to Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Well, I would imagine it'd be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
I can't do Wednesday.
Huh?
I can't do Wednesday, but I can do
Well,
Tuesday or
okay,
Thursday.
Tuesday or Thursday.
Work
Okay.
schedule on the other end of my
Yeah,
household.
Tuesday, Thursday,
I can't
for
control.
somebody else, no. But anyway, I hope they have that schedule. I'll know tomorrow, and then I'll put it out email.
If I can't make it, is there someone else that could stand in for me, if it happens to be Wednesday?
I can do it Wednesday. Yep.
I'd like to get this thing underway before cold weather sets in, you understand?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be nice.
Yeah. And I don't know if we'll ever hear from DES this year.
Okay.
My friend of mine, good friend of mine, says, you want to get some action, he says, send one of your boys down there and start cutting along the river. And I said, you'll have more people down there to shake a stick at.
Yeah, but then we'll
And I
have to
said,
send
"Yeah, then
someone.
we'll be getting sued."
If we want to send someone down to start cutting, we'll have to send someone out to report them too.
Yeah.
To send 2 people. Else no one will notice.
All right, so I guess just to summarize, and let me make sure that I've got it right. It sounds like the Conservation Commission's desires for the garden, from a big picture point of view, would be native species, perennials, universal access. I like that phraseology, by the way, Elizabeth. I think it's appropriate. And ease of long-term stewardship, which, for example, the statements of the stones along the edge being at ground level is in agreement with that, because you can mow over them. They'll still be visible, but it's easy long-term care, I think, is a desirable goal.
The overall strategies for a very natural looking garden, and we all met, Terry, Ellen, and I, together and evolved the design together, and I think it's really good design. It's like really fun.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thank you.
Well,
I think they're pretty much squared away with the final project, I hope. And we'll discuss that next week.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm all set.
So I was gonna say, you've gotten from us what you need?
Yeah.
Okay, very good,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
only have one question. We'll discuss that, because I noticed in 2 proposals, one of the walls is 38 feet and another's 30.
Well,
We'll discuss that in a meeting,
Yes.
Sure.
okay?
Sure.
And thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you all for
Thank you.
your time working
Yes.
on the park.
Yeah, well,
Thank you all.
I guess you can
Thank
do
you.
that when you're retired.
All right, have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Richie,
Thank
can-
you.
Thank you. Richie, can I ask you one quick question? Hey, Richie, can I ask you one question? Before?
Yeah.
The sign that I passed off to you this evening, if the bracket is finished, are you planning on saving to install that till much later?
We're not gonna put it up until we're ready to open the park.
Sounds good.
I'll
Excellent.
store the sign, I'll have the
Excellent.
bracket made, I'll go down and see Russell Pope and bring the sign to him. He said, bring the sign when you have it, and he says, and I'll go up and measure the pins to make sure I put the hole in the right spot. I said, they're 12 inches on center. He said, well, I'm gonna double check it. And he says, bring the sign to me and I'll build it. And then he's donating it,
Great.
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, as well as a lot of other ones. Here's a letter I had read at the fishing derby. You might want to put it in your file.
Okay, thank you.
Let them read it, but I think Pat was there when I read it.
I was.
Yeah.
It was nice. Thanks,
Thank
Richie.
you. Yeah,
Thank you, Richie.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next item to discuss is the Piscassic River Loisel property kiosk. And
Hello, I'm Ellen Snyder, 26 Johnson Drive, IBIS Wildlife Consulting. Here to talk to you about the kiosk for Piscassic River Loisel, and I think you all should have a draft map for the property, and then one of a locus map, and then some text.
all of which you sent out via email a couple weeks
A little while ago, yeah, and I've tweaked it, I tweaked it a little bit. Did they get the more recent one?
Yeah, I forwarded it though tonight, because I
No,
wanted
that's
to
okay,
print
yeah.
it, and then I didn't have.
Yeah, I tweaked them both a little bit, and when you print them, they don't look as nice as they do on the computer, so I was like, ooh.
So if you guys look on an email that I sent, like.
I can pass these around too.
Okay.
Oh,
We have it.
Ooh,
Give the tram
I should have asked these guys to make copies for
I think
everybody.
there's another map though.
It says you were trapped on a bus.
Exactly.
Didn't sound good.
And again,
It's a little
when you
slightly
print it, it
longer.
doesn't look as bright and vivid, and I might tweak it just one more time, but there's the two
Oh.
maps. So,
Oh, I don't have that one.
so yeah, I was looking for,
That was
Very
sent
nice.
first.
for feedback on the maps, and I got feedback from, I think it was Casey, who's not here on the text, and I incorporated that. And one thing I thought it would be helpful to talk about, I'm gonna pass this around, this is the Wigan Farm signs, which, I actually worked on those too, and so there's two different, signs there that Infinite Imaging did, and so there's the title of the property, there's the map, and then there's the text about the uses of the property, kind of what we have on that text, and then on the back of the kiosk, there's another sign that's got a lot more information, which we won't do it, I don't think we'll do that at Piscassic Loisel, but one of the things we need to decide is, once we finish the maps and we got it the way we want in the text, is do you want it to be, I think our original thought was, you send the pieces to Infinite Imaging or whoever you decide to hire for the sign, and they'll do the layout of, what I was thinking was the property map, and the text about the property would be the one really big sign, and I think we had the dimensions 45 by 35 inches or something, and then I was thinking the locus map should be a separate sign that is made by Infinite Imaging, because the locus map is more apt to change, because their properties might get conserved, or somebody might say, I don't want a trail on my property anymore, whatever the issues are, or the town might put a trail in on some of the properties over on Pollitt's Brook. So my thought was to have the locus map done on a separate sign by Infinite Imaging. It can be right there, next to the other one, and there's room on the kiosk for that, So some design things. Let's see. I did email Phil Brown at New Hampshire Audubon. I emailed him the maps and the text because I wanted to make sure they were okay, that we were putting them on the map, and that they were okay with. I did GPS their trail, so it should be accurate. Haven't heard back from him yet. Yeah, and so some of the other things are, like on the locus map, I could label more roads, little details about, are there some things you think should be modified or added to the, it's really easy to do. And you also notice on the Wigan Farm, Infinite Imaging actually came up with that design, like there's the great blue herons are sort of a graphic that's on the sign.
Yep.
And then I think they had a picture, although we could come up with a photo. So those are some design elements that you guys need to think about, or I can work with them when the time comes to, and they'll do a proof and send it back, and we can look at it. But some things to think about. So.
Hey, thank you, Ellen. Hey, do you know if did you send Phil the locus map as well?
Yes, I did.
assume?
Yeah.
Okay. So, When we get these made, it might be worth getting 2 of these, check in with Phil, make sure it's okay with the Audubon, but there's a kiosk at that
Yeah,
property as well.
right.
It might be worth putting one of these locust maps there.
Yeah,
as
maybe
well.
they, yeah, I've looked at their kiosk, it needs a little work too. But it's, cause a lot of stuff fades, but these signs, when you get them made, they won't fade. Cause I don't know if you looked at the one at Wigan Farm, but it's been there since
Yeah.
2003 or something.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's
really amazing.
Yeah, they use UV resistant
Yeah, it's,
inks, et cetera.
excellent.
Yeah.
It's really good. So, yeah, I was thinking that we could ask them if they wanted a map. And you may know, I don't think there are trails on their Smith property, but do you know, Drew?
There are not official.
Yeah, there's no
trails.
parking, right, for that really, so you kind of have to,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the way the locust map looks is,
Yeah, I think.
property's
it's
there,
good.
you can wander over if you can find your way there, but there's no
Right.
formal trails.
And there's, there's the old Woods Road on that property,
Mhm.
or Old Woods Roads, but that's really it.
Yeah, and I really don't think it's good to put a trail unless everybody's
For real.
recognized
Yeah,
it as
it's
an
not
actual
marked
trail.
or
It's not-
anything,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not marked.
Yeah.
Can I ask do you want comments now, or should I send an email?
Either way, if
the-
it's something you think everybody wants to hear, you can,
The one thing I was thinking, the trail map, I know it's not like a giant trail, like super far or anything like that, but do you
the
think?
distance,
Yeah, like maybe
Yeah,
like
we can
little
do this.
carrot, they make the little, you put a little carrot symbol at like the trail intersections.
Yeah.
And then like the distance between
Yeah.
the carrots.
sounds good.
Just so folks kind of have an idea, like, oh, it's,
Oh, I see.
and maybe like a, yeah, because then they could add them up and they'd
Yeah,
know
I can
how,
even put in the
about how.
legend and also, do it on the trail too.
Yeah, it's like full loop,
Yeah.
and return to car, just,
Yeah.
is so far, I guess, maybe. Just so folks have an idea what they're getting themselves into, then it's.
Would that tie in if we ever decided to put it on what is the website? You went to the workshop too, I know it's.
Yeah, the trail finder.
Trail
workshop.
Finder.
Yeah, we could just we can put it on there.
Yeah, but I mean, of all our sites, I think this is the one that would probably make the most sense
Put
to
that
put on
there.
there because it's
Got a nice
got a
look.
trail,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
well set up and.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can ask Audubon, then we can also put it on the locust map, how long their trail is. It's really nice, it's really nice out there.
It is, yeah,
It's
very
quite
nice.
nice out there.
Yeah. It's
Um,
very beautiful property.
Yeah, yeah. Both of them are nice, both of them are very beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
That's some very minor comments on the locust map. It's just moving text a tiny bit.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah. You
Okay.
work in GIS, it's painful.
Yeah, I know. And being, drafting maps, or survey plans all the time, it's like, I just notice the small things and sometimes miss the big picture, but.
I noticed under prohibited, we didn't say campfires. I thought that should be, it says no camping, but I thought campfires should be added. Assume no campfires are allowed?
Definitely.
Or,
Or
what do they say,
fire.
kindling of fires, or whatever, it's the terminology.
Just no fires.
No
Yeah,
fire.
no
that'd be great.
fires, yeah,
Yes.
that's a good point.
You don't want to introduce extra words, just no fires, that's simple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Makes sense. My only comments on the text things were just Maston Drive. And as the road goes into it, the text a little bit.
Oh, yeah, no, I know, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
and Trotter Park.
I see what he's saying.
Yeah.
That was it.
And the town hasn't done anything, right, over on those I talked to you about it on the east-north side of Falls Brook. There's the Waterworks still has that property, and then there's Leary and Rousseau and Sazek, which I guess got combined, which I finally figured out, which is driving me crazy. But those two got, actually lot lines
Oh,
got
okay.
combined, which is why I couldn't figure it out. But they're over there, right? Nobody's done anything.
Yeah, the only trail, if you will, over there comes off from Maston Drive and follows
Right.
the road that
Yeah.
was put in when the wells were put in along that property
Yeah.
10
I walked
years
that,
ago or
I
whatever.
walked it, it's pretty overgrown.
It's, yes,
Yeah.
it is substantially overgrown.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes out and heads towards Follett's Brook and
Right.
then sort
That's
of
where it
runs
ends.
out.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And it's pretty wet down near Follett's Brook most
Right.
of the time.
Yeah.
Do we already come up with a size? Approximate size?
I think it's like 45, I think I actually made the map, it's like 45 by 35, so, but that would be the map. I think my thought was that was the map and the text, so it'll be bigger
Nice.
than the Wigan Farm signs.
And then, because I know that there's, I have that, I think I told folks that, I got an L-chip sign from the fellow that did the monitoring for L-chip, I think.
Mhm.
He dropped a sign off at my office one
Okay.
day. So I have an L-chip sign, I
Okay.
think that's about this big that needs to
Okay.
go out there.
Yeah.
And we should probably put one of our remove pet waste signs
Okay.
out there as well, which I think they're like,
Yeah, those are like 8.5 by 11s.
so yeah, so it
Can I
might be
get
kind of
those from you
too.
sometime, and then when I can go back out there and I'll remeasure, so I'll sort of measure what those are and see how it look, and then,
Do you have pet waste signs?
I
Are they
do.
some downstairs, or are they,
I have them at home.
could you drop them off in my office?
Thank
Do you
you.
go to work? Or you can
Work
even
early.
So,
lean it on
L-chip,
the
pet
back
waste.
door. I'll talk to you later. Because I
um,
have the, if you're in town, I have the L-chip one in my office across the street.
Yeah, I'll swing by sometime.
Okay.
What else? Oh, you're gonna give me the logo, the town logo?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or some- or
you know
someone.
what? I was gonna actually ask you know who, I just got the town logo put on a sign I had made, but, the company that made the sign for us already had the logo. So I don't know, Mike Hoffman must have supplied it to them. So if you haven't heard back yet, I can shoot Mike, unless you have Mike Hoffman's email, you could probably get it from him, because he
Yeah,
supplied it to Timberline Signs from
Okay.
somewhere.
Do you want me to just, I know Mike, I can just.
Oh, you do?
Why don't I just get one?
Sure.
Yeah, Mike has
Thanks,
it.
Gil.
Yes, and Mike-
Thanks.
All right.
it's a very nice version, it looks quite nice printed.
Good.
I like your,
Yes.
I like all the text. Is this like similar to other texts? I love the text, that you wrote up.
You mean about the property?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this, I do, I write.
Very nice.
But no, open to whatever. I didn't, they say people don't read, so this is like actually more text than you're supposed to put on stuff apparently. So it might be nice if we did have a few pictures. We
Would-
could use things directly from that. Does anybody have any great photos from?
I have some really nice early morning photos
Do you?
with like fog on the field.
Oh, I think that, I mean, you're sort of looking at it anyway, but you put it on the sign and kind of.
Some pictures of flowers out back. I could dig some.
You want to send me a couple that you think are really nice?
Okay, I'll CC everyone so everyone has it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have some on my phone.
So relative to the dog waste signs, if I remember correctly, we had two different types of signs made, and I think we have one of each left. And one said, dog waste pollutes our rivers, please scoop the poop. And then I think the other one said, dog waste can pollute our drinking water, please scoop the poop. And so I would guess at that property, we should probably use the rivers one.
Yeah. It was supposed to be drinking water, but didn't end up being drinking water.
I think that's,
pollutes the rivers?
Our rivers,
Our
if I remember correctly.
So scoop.
Please, please,
The poop.
scoop.
Please.
I think that's good, it gives a little more background.
Yeah, it
Instead of
provides a
just-
little
just-
context.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Does anybody know if it's Pollitzbrook is with an apostrophe or without? I always remember there was something about Pollitzbrook. Packers Falls does not have an apostrophe, right? It's
No.
Packers.
yeah,
No, that has no apostrophe.
Pollitz?
I
have to go
don't
back.
know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I always have to look if it's one T or two.
There's an apostrophe? Okay.
Apostrophe.
If that map's right.
If that's right. Did I make that up?
Another 10 years, it'll be gone.
The brook or the apostrophe?
Okay. Anything else?
There are also monarch butterflies in that field that you're walking through to get to the trails in the woods at the Little Swamp.
Yeah.
It has
Because
been
there's
painted.
milkweed growing it when they don't mow it down, there's milkweed there. I saw it when I went through just a few weeks ago.
That has been hayed, right?
Yeah,
That
they,
Probably
that
maybe
one's-
since
they,
then passed. but
they hay it pretty early though.
There were
so it
some
could-
still standing,
could
there
grow
were still
back.
some milkweeds there,
Yeah.
and there were butterflies.
Should we have the butterflies mentioned in this, in the paragraph?
Yeah, we can't accept that field is managed, really,
Yeah,
right? I
that's
mean,
in-
that
Oh.
kind of was in
That's
the
the-
early
that's
agreement.
managed.
So it's not
Okay.
quite the same as,
Yeah,
All
that
right.
one is managed.
it's
for
kind of the opposite,
agricultural.
because
Yeah.
Wigan Farm
Okay.
specifically says you can't do agriculture, whereas this one says
I
we wanted
see.
to do our.
I see, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, was that agreement made with an individual, or was that just as part of the management plan?
It's more as part of the management plan, because the agreement with the individual is severable by either party, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your work on this, Helen.
Yeah.
Really?
Fun.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
It's fun. It's nice to get back out there, and it's,
So if we provide comments, if any, which I don't think there are, just out of curiosity, with that, if it's ready to, so are you ready to go to
Yeah.
Infinite Imaging with it? And
yeah, so what I would do is make the, the edits, run it back out to you all again, and then, if you could just take one look at it, and then we can send it over, and then I can, if you want me to be your I can set up, but you would be obviously with them, you would be the client, there we go.
Yeah.
But they could send us the proof, and then we could look at the proofs for both.
That would be great.
Because it looks a lot better when it's on their proof than when it's on my printout.
So if I could get you photos soon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
very
the next
soon.
couple
And then
weeks, we can get it over to them.
We could get to the point before our next meeting where we have a proof for our next
Yeah,
meeting.
that'd be nice.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
know, how much time do they take usually?
They're usually pretty quick, yeah. I mean, I can even contact them now to say, hey, I'm gonna be getting this stuff to you, and, I should be able to make these changes and get you something either by, early next week. So you'd have a week to look at it, and then we could send it out to them, and that would give them a couple weeks to get it back. I think, yeah, they're pretty fast. This is pretty simple graphics layout, so it's not like they have to come up with too much design work.
I was gonna bother you about something else.
Yeah, do you want to keep those maps, or can I have the maps back, or you guys want to mark them up?
You can have them. Thank you.
You know, your ink back, do you recycle that personally at home? The ink? But I just wanted to ask your opinion on the date of mowing for monarchs, if you have any.
Yeah, I think I think I looked, because I wrote that, September 15th, there's, if you look at the monarch, some of the references he mentioned, it says when do monarchs typically leave your area? And back then, our area, they left, by mid-September to October 1st. And I probably said September 15th just because a lot of it is about what's the capacity for mowing. If it doesn't get mowed, then you start to lose other features of the habitat. So I totally understand. I mean, he's totally, it's right spot on. So my suggestion would be have the town mow later, or at the very least, leave the patches of milkweed for later. So if they have to use their summer help, a large part of the field does not have milkweed in it, and that could be easily mowed. And leave the patches, mark them off, or educate the mowers to know that that's milkweed, which they probably know. And then maybe the town can afford to go back out there in October, early October, to mow it on their own, with their own staff, or something. I work part-time for the town of Durham on stewardship, and I've been suggesting that, and I think you have a stewardship, we have a stewardship fund, I think. Is that correct? You guys still have a stewardship fund as part of there's supposed to be this sub-account for stewardship. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But that, you could always allocate a certain amount of money for stewardship and say either, we'll give money back into the town, to the Public Works Department, if it's going to cost you a little bit more to delay the mowing until October 1st. But probably ideally is to go out there with the staff in late August every year and talk about the fall management. Because if you have a drought year, you might be able to mow September 15th, because everything's died. Like we had, last year was pretty bleak. So it's, there's usually, if they want to set date, fine, just say, can you mow after October 1st, and leave the patches, or can we meet, late August every year and discuss when we think we're going to want to mow.
Because I think originally it might have been September 1st, and then we modified it to
Yeah.
2 weeks later.
I think
back
so.
in 2010.
I think that's right.
And then
Today's.
I just want to make sure we're not being negligent as far as the
Exactly.
management plan goes as well. If the management plan, the goals of the property are to preserve wildlife or whatever, for preserve the habitat, the specific management plan. If we're not specifically managing it properly for these, then maybe we do have to spend money, our own money, to have it mowed later, you know, to actually.
Yeah, well,
need
that's what I'm saying, if
the
they
property.
can't do it,
Right.
then, but I do think they could mow a part of it in September.
Or should we even be mowing the milkweed?
It'll come back.
It will?
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
As a matter of fact, you have to, you need to mow the field or it's gonna grow up,
Right.
you're gonna get
And what's the
woody
seed-
shrubs.
Once the pods start to open and release seeds,
Yeah,
it doesn't
they-
matter if you mow it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it
right.
scatters the
Yeah,
seed.
they'll come, the milkweed will come back, it's pretty, the milkweed is very hardy, the monarchs do come, you know, it's their populations that are cycling, and,
Okay, so that's why we have tons this year, you think, the cycle?
yeah, I think they're doing a little bit better
Can't
this year.
believe how many we
Yeah.
had this year.
Yeah.
How unreasonable do you think it would be if we were to say something like consultation, don't mow until you've had a consultation with the Conservation Commission? Is that, I mean, I don't wanna put an undue burden on the town either, but I also think then it gives us some, you know, that at least maybe someone goes out there and we look and we say, oh, this does look like a good time to mow, or it doesn't. If we kind of hold back and say, hey, just, you can't do it until you hear from us that it's okay to do it. And I don't know what kind of relationship we had with them as far as they're doing this as a favor to us, and so therefore we're trying to be, you know, or accepting what's convenient to them.
I think Ellen's idea was good about just having a fall plan, go out, put your plan together, and then depending on if it's a drought year, it depends on what's going on that year, but if we went out there and just put it, you know, in our schedule, that we could make that decision.
The other thing to do would be to map where the milkweed patches are, and they're gonna grow probably, change a little bit, but they're pretty stable. Like where are the big patches of milkweed? You don't have to save every milkweed stem. That's not necessary. But particularly right when you cross the bridge, that area in there is where a lot of milkweed
Yeah.
is. So you might want to just map where the patches are. Public Works has that, and you have maybe do a little update just about monarchs and mowing of Wigan Farm and say, here are the patches. Don't mow these until after October 1st. Let's see how the summer goes and just check in September 1st to see if it's okay to go ahead even in the rest of the field. But it's not that big of a effort, right? I think that's very doable.
I think it's amazing that in my time on this commission, it's possible that the chrysalis date of monarch butterflies has changed by potentially a couple of
Isn't
weeks.
that something?
I think
In
it
7
changes
years.
year to- I think it's just not like whatever.
Or do you think it's
changes
later every
happening, but
year,
just
you know?
seasonally, last
Yeah.
year with that drought, it was very different than this year.
Yes.
And the populations were doing different things in other parts of
It's
the
true.
country.
There's a tracker thing you can look online if folks
Yeah.
have looked at it, but I looked at it last night because my wife was there actually and saw the mowing that had been done, so she told me. So I looked at the website and it tells when there's sightings in Durham from a couple of weeks ago where, still caterpillars.
Yeah.
um,
I suggest
stuff like
you
that.
engage him and have him help you.
Well, that's what I was
Be the
thinking.
champion for it, and
Yeah, I
you
think
have the
so.
contacts with Public Works, and, Rick will do whatever.
They're very
They're
responsive.
Yeah.
very cooperative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there's no, this is like, perfect.
I know, that's what I was thinking. We should have him do,
We
get
can have a
us.
volunteer.
Have him.
There you go.
No, that was like,
He could do the stewardship.
Guy.
Yeah.
And he would.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
People working for property.
It's
Yep, absolutely.
passion, yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you,
Thank
Ellen.
you.
Yeah.
I know we all look forward to having the material up at the kiosk. And I'm not pushing time-wise, I'm just saying, the kiosk blew down, we didn't have great information on it previously, and then it blew down and we had nothing there, so we all look forward to having good information that will stay and be useful for a long time. I think that'll be great.
Who mows the trail through that field?
I think Tom does. I think Tom Loisel does, yeah.
And Public Works mows the field, the trails through Wigan?
Yes. Yeah,
That's very nice.
yeah, it's very nice.
I would say that, can I say one more thing about Piscasset Loisel?
Sure.
I think that maybe we should put up the dog poop sign sooner than later.
Sure.
Possibly before we get the.
Say that again?
We may have to I think that we should install the dog the dog waste
Yeah.
removal sign.
Yeah.
Soon, before, like,
Now,
As
Pretty
soon
soon.
as possible, yeah.
yeah.
I did remove a sign from there the other day. That was someone else put up about removing poop.
Oh,
So-
you wanna just put it where you want it, like put that one up in the.
I think so.
Sure.
Just-
I mean, it will be removable.
Yeah, it would just be screwed on so we can
Yeah.
take it off.
So we can move it around if we
Or
need
just
to.
know what the dimensions is actually.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, let's check in after the meeting. We'll figure out a way for me to drop one off.
Okay, that sounds good. I haven't been there in a few. I don't know if there's a new sign back or not. And whoever it was, if you're watching, which perhaps you are, I really appreciate your intention of having people remove their dog waste from the field.
Yes.
If you'd like to, please approach the commission with any thoughts on signage. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We agree with the sentiment, just perhaps not the words on that particular sign. All right, excellent. So now that we've done our business that requires our guests, if there's no objection, I'll jump back in the agenda to the approval of meeting minutes. I didn't hear any objections, so with that in mind.
Am I being assigned to be a voter?
Oh, yes, let's, I'd like to nominate Julia to be a voting member for this evening's meeting. Oh, and I should say also, I looked at my emails, and Andrea also sent me an email saying she would not be able to attend tonight, so Andrea's excused as well. So let's do the July 13th, 2017 meeting minutes first. I know that Sue sent those out. Anyone have any comments or corrections on those meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the July 13th, 2017 Conservation Commission meeting minutes as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the July 13th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions?
Don't have to abstain.
You don't have to.
That's okay. Yeah, you can vote on meeting minutes, even if you were not at the meeting, as long as you
As long
read
as
them,
you read
that's
them.
fine,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But it's also fine to abstain. Okay, so then the next meeting is our August 10th, 2017 meeting minutes, which again, Sue distributed via email. Any comments, corrections on those meeting minutes?
Make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for August 10th, 2017.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain since I was not at the meeting. And as usual, thanks for the great notes, Sue. You do a great job.
You
Thank
do, you really do.
You do a great job.
That one was challenging too, because you had to do that from video recreation.
Loud. Clearly. Eloquently, is that what you said? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that. I've been that way for a long time.
You remember I had a lot of experience in the first year I was here, because
Yeah, there's a lot of catch up. Yeah. All right, next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Andrea sent it out electronically, and there are a few paper copies here. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns on the treasurer's report? Hearing none, I'm going to move on. If anyone comes up with anything, obviously feel free to email Andrea, myself, or, the entire committee as appropriate. I don't think there's anything that's, I glanced through, I didn't see anything that was exciting one way or the other. Committee and subcommittee reports is the next agenda item. I think this one might be a little short also because Casey, our town council representative, is not here this evening. And Roseanne, our planning board representative, is not here. So unless there's any other committee or subcommittee reports.
As far as the Shopmeyer Park Committee goes, we spoke a little bit earlier. The only other thing I have to say is that we got the sign in that's going to go out by the road and sent out the picture. Looks pretty good. The folks at Timberline Signs did a good job.
It really does look
Yeah, they did nice work. And I believe that's all I have. And as we spoke about a few minutes ago, hope to meet next week. And I'll let you all know if it happens to be a Wednesday and I can't make it.
Okay.
Text me. You text me.
Text instead of email? I can try.
I'm gonna change my email.
Okay. I think we have phone numbers, right?
Problems
Yeah.
with it.
Is your cell number the number that's on the
Yes.
list? Okay.
We had the first meeting of the Stormwater Steering Committee.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll have the second meeting next week.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. You bet.
Okay, so next is the chairman's report. The only thing that we have there is the Coastal Viewer GIS training. I sent out information related to that, and it was last Wednesday evening, if I remember correctly. Patrick, myself, and Diane Hardy, the town planner, were all there. So the Coastal Viewer is sort of a simplified GIS, graphical information system program that the intention is to make it so that lay people can use this GIS mapping to generate maps and gather information. Sort of the focus for this particular Coastal Viewer part is they're providing information related to conservation lands, waterways, habitat sorts of things. And it was very interesting. It was a 2-hour program. They sort of did an overview of, hey, this is what this tool can do. There were roughly 20 people there. Would you say that's about right?
Yes, I think that's right.
And the presenters were from University of New Hampshire, DES. Kristen Howard was from DES, and Nature Conservancy. And they're all
was there, yeah.
yeah, they're all sort of providing various inputs to the program and to this Coastal Viewer. And then they also gave us 3 assignments to work on during the second portion of the program. And the assignments are, pretty specific. Okay, turn on these layers of information, go to this address, overlay with this other layer, be able to demonstrate, you should now see a map that looks like this. And it was pretty detailed and pretty interesting. I wasn't able to get through most of the the complete steps in all of these just because of time constraints. It wasn't, it was that more than anything else. And I think overall, I would say it's a very interesting tool, and they sent us both the slides that were presented. Maybe I should send those out because they just recently emailed those. So I'll email out the slides.
It's nhcoastalviewer.org if anyone wants to go to the site. And I can pass this along if you want to write that address down.
Yeah, just this one.
And you can kind of you know, depending on how adept you are, you can play around with it. Those people that are familiar with UNH, is it Granite? Is
Granite,
that-
yeah.
Granite system would probably be pretty familiar with what's on there. One thing that was nice about having Diane there was you can introduce lot lines onto your map that you create, but Diane did caution that those are just general lines. They are not they're not surveyed lines. So if you go into your property in Newmarket and see that it doesn't look exactly how you think it should, that's because they're just general lines. They're not specifically surveyed lines or anything like that. So I would just want to, because I made that mistake myself, so I just would want anyone else to know that. Don't get upset if you see a line that doesn't look exactly right. They're within 30 feet, I think Diane said. So.
Well, and even from my experience, tax maps are, they're one layer of data, and they're not based on surveys, so a survey is a different thing.
Right, right. But it's a great
Thank you,
great
Drew.
resource for our town. I thought it was great
Yeah.
to look at, and if you're interested in seeing parts of land that are conserved that may have conservation easement, they may not be open to the public, but they will even show those parcels that have conservation easements, and so, I mean, I know as Drew and I looked, we saw lots of properties that we didn't know about, so it was kind of interesting to see that. So it is a great resource. I'm glad we went. I think it could be really helpful if we decide to produce maps, and you can actually create a user ID on there and save things for your own personal use. There's no cost to that, so that when you log in, you can go back and look at the things you've saved.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from a big picture point of view, it's Seacoast, New Hampshire, Geographic Information Systems Simplified, I guess is probably the way to say it. So very neat, cool tool. That was my takeaway. I'm not sure how much time I'll have to be able to use it and play around with it, but it's neat to know that it's out there and available for free and relatively easy to use.
I have used it at work.
Have
I
you?
have used it
Yeah.
as a tool for looking at coastal data, coastal information. I think it's neat how you can kind of see that changing coastline, the aerial images that you can fade back and forth. That's kind of one of the things I've used it for.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And that was, one of the presenters, Kristen Ward? What's her last name? Stewart. What's her last name? One of the presenters who works for DES, has the full-blown GIS stuff, and she said she often goes to the Coastal Viewer because it's a little easier to use, and you can get information a little more rapidly that way. So she said it's a little surprising, but I use this more than I thought I would. So it was neat. And the program overall was organized for and oriented towards municipal board members, so Conservation Commission folks, town planners, anyone who has an interest in that sort of information. So it was very neat. Glad I went.
Yeah, thank you for going, both of you.
Yeah, it was definitely cool. Very interesting. Any additional questions there? Okay, hearing none. Next item is the Shanda Park maintenance. I don't actually have anything there. I probably should, but I don't. Fencing has been put up to make the areas that we're collapsing in safe. I think the next steps there are, I know Mike Hoffman reached out to Underwood Engineers to try and get some information on what it might take to either rebuild the walls there or, stabilize. And I don't think he's heard back anything yet, so let me reach out to him.
Do you want me to? I feel bad that you're getting all the to-dos.
Sure, if you're
Okay.
willing to, that would be great.
And the Roseanne had offered to also find out if she could get a sort of a corresponding cost of doing the other rock option. I don't know what you'd call that, the sliding.
Yeah, sort of a riprap.
The
slope.
riprap. So if you, when you do that, if you copy her, maybe she'll remember to, she had a contact that she wanted
Okay.
to reach out to on that, so I figured.
Judy Ryan gave her the information of the person that did it for the condo association.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
great.
That was
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Sue. So then the next agenda item is the Dearborn Property Survey. And I sent out something a long time ago and got feedback and then have dropped the ball, essentially. So I need to get back to updating that. So I will update that, send it out one more time to make sure I've gotten everything in, and then we can send it out to the various surveyors. But basically, the input was, so my initial proposal was that we essentially have the 50-foot wide strip surveyed, and then if you're looking at the property from Grant Road, have the portion surveyed that goes behind the properties that are on Grant Road to the right-hand side going towards Pendergast Road. And at least Steve Miller was one of the first, Steve Walker?
Steve Walker.
Steve Walker. He wrote back and said, realistically, we should probably do the whole portion that has a budding property owners with frontage on Grant Road, and I think he's probably right there. So that's one update, and then Jeff, you had some additional updates as well as far as additional requests to make it more appropriate for the surveyors to know exactly what to do.
Achieving
So-
all of our goals.
Yeah, and achieving all of our goals. So I'll incorporate all of that stuff and send that
Bi-
back out.
Basically, we need from Pendergast
Yeah, that's what I thought.
over, behind, and then all the way across. Because we
Yeah.
want to go all the way out to Pendergast, because that one abutter there.
Yep.
There's no evidence along, there's a little bit of stone wall in their backyard, but other than that, and on their side yard, there's nothing but trees and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from Pendergast all the way to the back of the two new lots, probably, where Charlie's, Dearborn's
right.
old.
So
old
right
home
up
was.
to sort of where the Archambault tree
farm
farm
is.
would be,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly, from the tree
Yep.
farm to Pendergast,
And then.
and out the
And-
50
And,
foot.
and, yeah,
Right
and
away.
along the back edge of that property that's on Pendergast as well. Right, because
Yeah, all the way
The line
to-
actually comes out to Pendergast, and then there's another property that is on
True,
Pendergast. that
because it goes back to
there.
another piece of conservation land
Yeah,
as well, yeah.
yeah, so I think we want that one, it's that
Okay.
edge as well.
Yeah, was that, is that Fish and Game land out back, so?
Yeah, I think
So
so.
from the Fish and Game land, all the way to
Pendergast.
Archambault's.
Yeah, yep, yeah,
It's a fairly long way.
yes. Without much stone wall.
Yeah, yeah, well, there's some good subdivisions and some old remnant wire I saw out there when I was out there with Steve Walker, here and there.
Jeff, this is the property at 202 Grant.
Yes, yep,
Now, the last time I went by, they paved the
Mhm.
driveway. already.
yes. Yep.
True, yeah. Yeah, they paved it pretty soon, I think right after the new owners moved in, or right
Yeah.
before the new owners moved in of the house there. It has to be, to get off the conservation property and onto their property. Has to have a couple of curves in it.
Hope the plows will do.
It's in the same place as the dirt one was, so
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah, it is.
There was one other item I forgot about that we don't have that I meant to tell you about.
Sure.
At Neal Mill Road, at the gate,
Yep.
where the old pottery studio was, there was a parking area adjacent to that. The new owner has asked that the public no longer park in that parking lot when they use Neal Mill Road trails. You park on the road, it's fine. So I just wanted to share that with people so that.
Sure.
It's good to get out there, because I've been down there a few times in the last week, and there have been cars parked in that parking lot, just the last 2 Sundays.
Right, I think they're working on the house, so they're not there full-time, but.
Right. Yeah, I saw
my
them
wife
working
was
one
out
day,
there, and
actually.
He approached and said, we're asking people not to park there anymore. So, we may have to put a sign at some point, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens, or he may put up a sign.
He would have to, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
'cause that's not even our property.
Yeah.
So
We've
yeah,
never
so-
advertised it as property.
So,
No,
so the
but-
bottom line is, yeah, for anyone, obviously, who's here, or anyone who's listening, the request is to park by the side of Neal Mill Road prior to the open area that's next to the pottery studio area. So just pull off to the side of Neal Mill Road there. And I know that they've been doing work on the previous home that was there. I think is the way to say. I think they're essentially in the process of taking it down. And it has a super impressive chimney in there. Went by a few nights ago, and all the siding was off the house, and the chimney is impressive. That's the way to put it, I think.
Could you see into the basement?
No, the
Like the cellar hole? I don't know if you could see all the way into there and see if there was a big piece of granite or anything underneath it.
no,
Huh.
yeah, the floor was still there,
Yeah.
but
Nice.
on the first floor, the chimney is about no less than 6 by 6 in brick, and I would say it's probably closer to 6 by 8.
Wow. It still had the siding on it the other day when I went by, the boards.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all gone. Now it's the frame.
I think they're gonna put stuff. I didn't stop. I was gonna stop, but I was running, and I was like, I don't want to. I wanted to ask them if they were gonna rehab the house, like pull it apart, put it back together, or if they're gonna actually dismantle the whole thing and build a new house.
My understanding is they're dismantling and building a new house.
They're taking it apart gently.
Yes.
Are they gonna rebuild it somewhere else? Do you know? Or put the timber frame back?
I think the hope is to salvage the timber frame, not for their house, but
Right, for
to
someone
salvage
else.
it for something.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, which is good. It's cool.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Maybe they will.
Be hard to get rid of. It's a lot of brick.
It's probably local brick.
Probably is, yeah.
It's a pretty old house.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last topic is the Heron Point Sanctuary. So I think I've sent out information to commission members related to this, but essentially the access to the Heron Point Sanctuary is through property that is owned by the Heron Point Cooperative, Homeowners Cooperative. Some members of the Homeowners Cooperative have been concerned and have expressed concern about activities going on at the sanctuary, and have, historically that area and the parking area has been open from dawn to dusk, and it's essentially it's not heavily policed, and it's not, the gates are not closed. Apparently people have not been properly using it, and have been using it outside of those time frames. So some of the homeowners association members, I would say justifiably, are concerned with that, and have been in communication with the town about trying to either open and close the gate. It's difficult for either the police or the Department of Public Works to commit to having very specific hours for opening and closing the gate. So as a result, currently the gate is closed and locked all of the time. And so I would like to reach out to the homeowners association board and have a discussion and see if we can figure out some way to have a negotiated agreement on reopening the gate somehow, some way. And there are members, there are residents of that homeowners association who are interested in seeing that happen as well. So I think there's opportunities there, I'll say it that way. But it'll take a little bit of effort. So with that in mind, I'm hoping to reach out to that homeowner association board and try and start communication. Basically, essentially go and just ask, what are your concerns? What can we do to try to address these? The goal of having that property was donated to the town for people to use. And, it's public property, and because of that, I would like to see public access maintained. I understand, I think I understand some of their concerns. I want to make sure that I do understand their concerns, and I want to make sure that their concerns are addressed. And I hope that there's a way that we can address their concerns and maintain public access and not place undue burden on either the town police or the town Department of Public Works in order to have to open and close a gate. But it remains to be seen if all of those objectives can be achieved.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
The entrance where the gate is that private property that we have an easement for, or is that part of of the conservation?
I believe we have an easement for the driveway, if I remember correctly.
That'd be true. I'm almost 100% certain, because
Yeah.
we did, there was an easement, or there was access, was there access and then we had to move an easement because the driveway was on the other side of the facility?
There was something, yeah.
So we kind of modified something not that long ago, several years back, and I think it's an easement, but it's not the easement necessarily that's what's in question, though. It's getting from Bay Road over private
Right.
property
That's
to.
right.
Right, you have to go through the neighborhood.
to-
to
And
get
they,
there.
when they
Yes.
came here and spoke to us a couple of months ago,
Mhm.
and they said the lawyers were talking, so they wanted us to wait before we had reached out to, you weren't there, I don't think you're at that meeting. Remember
Yeah, I
when
think-
they were here a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I think that was Dale Jones who
Yes.
came and
Yes.
spoke. Yeah. So he's a resident of that community and a member of that homeowners association. He is one of the people that would like to see, the gate not locked 24/7.
Right.
And see if we can figure out a way to make that happen.
Because we offered to try to contact them, to talk to them, but they told us to wait until the attorney was talking with town administrator. So now we've got the green light, is that?
I think so. I'll confirm that with the town
Wonderful.
administrator, but,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think we've kind of come to an impasse where the gate is locked 24/7.
Right,
And that's
yeah.
a suboptimal resolution,
Mm.
I think is the way to say it.
I was here for that discussion. I think we read a letter maybe, but either way, I'd be more than happy if you need assistance. If you're gonna have a meeting, you need someone to join you for a sit down. I'd be
Okay.
more than happy to join you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's my question is, do we have to set up, I guess that's what I would wanna know from them. When you get the green light, I do think it's appropriate to make sure that we have that, because I know that there was a legal discussion that occurred between town lawyer and the association lawyer, so I wanna
Correct.
make sure we're the green light. And then can we have either a non-public session with them, or we could go to their board, because I believe this is coming from the board as well, that they're the decision-making party there at the park, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
So,
Yeah.
If we're allowed to do that, I wasn't sure because of public meeting rules, if we're allowed to have a group of our
A group.
commission.
Yeah, as long
or-
as long as we're not a quorum.
As long as, so less than 5. 4.
Four.
4.
Yeah.
Fewer than 4.
Maybe we could,
Okay.
they could put some sort of gate up with electronic gate.
Or 2 or 1.
Wi-Fi.
But I think it would be a good idea to have,
Yeah.
more than 1 at least.
Yes, I agree as well. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think I could be wrong, but it seemed like we had the open door to try to work something out.
Yeah.
yeah,
With
I
them.
just didn't know where we were, because I said,
We can't, I think just like with anything else, we can't do a formal agreement if it's gonna be a legally binding type thing.
Right.
That would have to go through town council, but we could entertain.
The reason that I posted this, I took it directly off of the town website as an addendum to your minutes from August.
Right.
Was because of the last paragraph. It says the town is looking at other solutions and will encourage the cooperative to work with us as well. And then they want you to share your concerns with the cooperative care of their attorney.
That's
So you would need to contact their attorney.
Yes. yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, so that's all there is on that at this point. We're at a suboptimal place, and it would be good to try and move to a
Yeah,
better
we need to
place.
get it going.
Electronic gate, they can drive by and
Maybe, yeah.
Foot access is still welcome, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
people can park on Bay Road too, technically, right?
Downtown.
And walk down.
Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't really a good
No,
location
no.
to park on Bay Road.
No.
it's kind
no,
of
really
scary.
isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a hill and turns
Yeah.
in both directions, essentially.
I think a good long-term solution, something we talked about before, was possibly, the Lamprey River folks talked to us about sidewalk and out that way, and we have public access through Bryant Rock. There's a public
Oh.
easement over the bridge through Bryant Rock. And then
That's
just,
how I got.
it's not that far up Bay Road
Yeah.
to it, but the road's narrow. Obviously, Bay Road's narrow there, and there are, I think, some restrictive objects, perhaps some rocks and stuff in there, but,
Yeah.
but just in the long term, it's a situation that we have no control over how people drive through there, and it's kind of one of those things.
And it's
that-
kind of sad to see, because the people that live there, they all have the signs, no parking in their yards, because you know that's where everybody's parking, because the gate's down.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can understand, you know, we don't want cars parking on the front lawn.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And you don't want cars driving down there at 10 o'clock at night
Right,
either.
yeah, right.
So I get that. I agree with that. Yeah. Okay, so does anyone else have anything else for old or new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
There we go. And
Second.
there we go. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Not about abstaining, but maybe not.
Thank you, one and all.